Pixie did another video. I would film myself, but it's quite dark really. It might be more enjoyable a night ride. Or a night drive, I guess. This is quite nice. It's nice when communities get together. You have a little sort of, and that's what it needs to do really, just work together. See, that's all being powered by that house. You've got this one as they come on. I think we need to do a bit more for the environment. You'd like plant trees that birds like to feed on. We seem to just plant trees because they're low maintenance, which is a bit of crap really. That's all quite nice little drive. And I'll probably talk about, I know, some kind of MGTOW stuff. Maybe what to do for 2021. So, I mean, some continual things I need to improve. I've moaned about my teeth. I should look at that. Yeah, because that sometimes acts as a barrier if you've got bad teeth. And there are barriers in society anyway. I mean, like, people have stigma, like if you're overweight. If you're overweight as a guy, you're going to find it harder to pick up a mate because they have very high standards. And it's nice that people set themselves high standards, however, they need to also have high standards. So, if they don't actually go to the gym but they want somebody who's an athlete, then there's a bit of a confusion there, because the offspring are not going to turn into their husband. They might be somewhere in the middle, you know, they might not. They might have flaws, basically. Which way do I want to go? Quick route or a long route? I might take a long route actually. I like the little drive, it's all quiet on the motorway. This little section. So yeah, it's about looking at values and about matching values and about setting yourself up with values, because that's another issue. If you enter into any game and you're not prepared for it, you're not aware of the rules, you're going to get burned. And I think that's what people happens to some men and happens to some women, is that they model their world around their parents. It depends what kind of relationship your parents have with each other, and also the relationship they have with you. So that's quite important to foster sort of positive things. An example of this, I've got a client, and he's an older guy. He is kind of like a father archetype, I could say, typal. And I guess he looks at me in a kind of, he sees me as a mate, but you know, there's a difference there, because we're different ages. How he views me and how I view him. But he's a kind of fatherly type, but he has some funny ways about him, you know, like most men do, and maybe women have their own little ways about him. But he's a bit of a hugger. So he likes to give me a hug, and it feels a bit uncomfortable. And that's because of my parental type was being raised. I mean, I like hugging my kids and stuff, you know, when I do spend time, and I do hug my own dad because I understand that he's been through certain torment, and it's just knowing that you probably loved is probably more important, because if there's stuff going on in your life, knowing someone cares, you know, a simple hug can mean probably a bit more than sitting down and having a half an hour chat with them about, you know, how they need to sort of improve things for themselves. Anyway, so I understand from him, it's comforting as well, you know, it concludes the night, and also for me, it brings him into a mood state where it's positive. And I guess bringing someone close to your heart, if you have a strong energy resonance, it kind of brings, it relaxes them, you know, in the same way, like if a cat sits on your chest and purrs, it has a relaxing sensation about it. So there's a harmonic in yourself that does the same as well. You resonate at a certain frequency, and it's really interesting what sort of things you can pick up. Someone was talking about his pain in his body, and I was aware that his nervous system is constantly pulsing. Most people think of it just gets switched on when they move around. So there's a different electricity present in his body that's picking up micro signals and changes, but he's sending out this electric frequency that it's in tune with. And I guess this is why people get they suffer from sort of electromagnetic radiation, or devices can make them uncomfortable because their nervous system has become particularly sensitive to an external force. It's probably masking a similar frequency to them, and so they're not able to filter out so well. It could be that they're on the autistic spectrum, and this extra energy waves around them is making them really uncomfortable, and that's how they pick it up. So yeah, so based on that parental type, so kind of for me the healing is just to see it as a kind of male bonding thing. This is the problem we sometimes have as men, is how we bond to each other. We also, there's things that shouldn't happen, is forced bonding. Talk about your problems, bring them to the surface. No, because they have a counter-destructive effect on me. Basically, you go into a fight or flight mode, and if you're depressed, this energy might get turned on yourself. You know, people might go, sod it, nobody really cares about me anyway, and then jump off a bridge. They might not want to talk about the problems because they need to first heal their kind of foundations to deal with it. Or sometimes they need to feel like they're a man because they don't feel like a man, and so they need to go off and do something that they can relate to as a male, and it gives them some sort of pride, and then that allows them, because their self-esteem's boosted, to chip away at the problem. And you know, for women, they have a different coping mechanisms. That's all it is. It's not necessarily one's right, one's wrong. Just that a man might want to engage with his problem physically, and if he can redirect that into something positive and constructive, that's fine. But if he has all this stress, so his body's got stress, he's got loads of hormones, he's acting like he's going to a war zone, he's acting like he's going to a fight, he's acting like it might be the end of his life, and so he's prepared for an extreme situation. Now, for a female, they're used to operating in groups, so opening up and communicating with another female, they can see that as empowering. For a man, it's given his power over to somebody else. So he lacks the ability to be independent, because being independent is really important for blokes, and being able to function on their own as well. It's not that they don't want to function in groups, but they'll be able to do that, because what happens when they enter this female group is they can say, you know what, I'll deal with that, and they get it done. You know, oh, you need this, right, fine, I'll get it done. And for the women, it's like, great, he's got it done, we don't have to talk about it, don't have to worry about it, you know, then they can get on with it. Not unless the woman's very sort of hands-on, so hang on, if you're going to do it, I'm going to be there to watch what you do, sort of thing, you know, because that also happens a lot as well. There's a car zooming along. Zoom into a red line, there's nothing there, it's obviously stressed. So I'm just going to see how he responds. That's the problem when the traffic turns red, we're stuck. I'm just going to put it on pause for a sec. So we're going off, but he wants to get ahead of me, which is fine. There's no point competing him over the speed on the road, because the road goes the same direction. And I mean, all I'm going to lose is 30 seconds that I'll probably spend thinking. I get to wherever I'm going and sit there and think for so many seconds. Yeah, so there's no point to this. It's being effective, so you know, if this person needs to get home by a certain time, he's doing it. But if this is his life, it's like fight or flight. I've got to get there, I've got to get this done, firing away at it, you know. And if his car fails him, then he emotionally becomes a lot weaker, because he's investing his stress, he's investing his psychological connection with his vehicle in being effective and efficient, and when it fails, boom. Same with work. I mean, if you're doing a job and it doesn't mean anything, but it pays the bills, and you don't know how to do anything else, then your work becomes a control mechanism for your own psyche. You're basically relying on it to function. So once somebody's shops or car alarm's gone off. So the other thing to do is, talking about the MGTOW thing, was also look at models that work, and this also works for women as well, in that you look at a society or a culture where the women are doing well or the men are doing well, and and then you look at what's working. Or it could be that you're like the polar opposite. So if you look at the successful people and you match them to that criteria, then you might do better in that country or place, or dating someone from that area. You know, what's working, what are you attracted to? You can have preferences as well. It's a bit like I like Russian women. I think they're great. I might be wrong, but I have this impression. I realise that not all Slavic people are the same. So Ukrainians and other things, I've had a lot of trouble off Ukrainians. The Russians seems a bit more positive because I don't think there's colonized. I've had other people that aren't colonized. I'm more likely to get people that are not colonized coming from that area of the world because I think it's to do with the crime level. I mean, there is a lot of crime in Russia. I'm not saying that's not true, but I think there's a higher level of poverty in areas of the Ukraine, and it's reflected in the behaviour you get online. People going online just to get money out of you. So I've still got to filter through people, but generally I might get a better level of communication. However, the cost of that is that I'm encountering people who maybe they're less emotional, or there might be some other reasons why they are single, and that could be that they put their job first. So I've set my criteria is they've got to have a job, because if somebody comes to you and they're part-time, they don't earn a lot, they don't have much prospects, you know, they don't own a house, or they've got some living issues, it can lead you into a con. I mean, it could be quite genuine, and it's nice you can help people out, but they've got to realise you haven't invested enough in them to want to do that. If you met somebody and you thought, well, you know, let's move things forward together, then you can work together. But they don't want that. You'll encounter people that are out to take advantage of you, and it wastes your time. It makes you feel bad about yourself in some ways. I mean, once you see it, realise that there's just a lot of desperate people out there, and then you accept that maybe 8 out of 10 people are going to be fake. You can get on with your life, and it's the same for women. I mean, probably 8 out of 10 people are going to be asking for dirty photos of them or something, and it just denigrates the relationship, and so there's nothing there. The same when a woman says, well, I like for men to buy me flowers and stuff and all these things. It's like, well, yeah, we haven't met you, because my culture, I'm going to meet you before I start thinking about them things. And generosity comes from it just become a natural inclination inside myself. It's like buying things for your children. It should be a natural function in your brain. So, I mean, if it's not, it's probably that you've entered an area of the relationship too early. There's a time when you're mature enough to do it. Naturally, what really happens is that older men pair up with younger women. Because men become more successful and better with age, they also become better looking with age as well. There's a reason for that. And also, women look better at certain ages. Yeah, there's peak points in your fertility. It's just engineered that way. And I think that some women that don't have children may actually look better for longer. You've got someone like, Kylie Minogue or some other people. I mean, there are some people that must be very fertile because they look really great. They get back into shape. You know, some people just, a bit like Carol Vorderman. She's actually a lot better looking now than she was in her younger days, which is interesting. But maybe she was having children when she wasn't quite right for her. Looks like some police activity. I'm just going to play it cool. What's going on there? Okay. Some sort of crash situation. Yeah, there's a problem in there. It's like there's a bend in the road and people park right up to it. And if you're distracted, you'll easily collide with all that. You have to go around this little mound in the road. So somebody wasn't paying attention and had driven in there. Now the police have turned up and probably got him in the back of the motor. Which is interesting because that car disappeared. The one was making all the noise. I think it went off a different direction. That's true. So yeah, I basically look at different cultures, what's working, get involved. I mean, if your tastes are different, like an issue they got in the Japanese culture is that women get to a certain age and men are looking for them much younger. They think you need to get married by 25. So if you've got a woman that's 30, she's probably getting pushed out into the out. She's like been made redundant from the man pool. But they're so focused on their careers that they don't see the bigger picture. It's like, well, you've got to get married by a certain point. I mean, this is the other issue when I've got this, someone contacts. If they're too serious, they want to be like keep you in the friend zone, but they're possibly looking for a relationship further down the line. They're leaving it too long. I'm going to go off somewhere else because there's no chemistry there. I don't want to date someone to just have children with them. I don't want to date someone, or because I see it as a part of a kind of survival. This is what you do when you get to a certain age. It's like, great, but it's like I don't live in this funny society where there's a button switched on and then you've got to get married and have children. I actually function in an autonomous way that I engage with somebody. I have a chemical reaction that I like being with that person. However, sometimes it comes in a bit too strong, and I don't have any control over developing deep feelings for people when it's too late. That's why I look for some other culture that, if I fell in love with them, they wouldn't feel threatened by that, because that's what they aspire to. It's back again with what I started with the game. If you've got a set of rules, like you're fed up with cold men and you want somebody fully switched on and emotional, that's fine. If I pair up the wrong person, then that's my problem. I have to sort that out, or I have to tone it down. Don't be too clingy. But if you're kind of fairly independent and you go codependent, and you don't do it often, then it can trigger that effect. There's other cultures where it's not working, and also what's not working in these cultures for these women, the reverse of that. I mentioned about femicide and jealous men. They try to keep them out of education. Some women, they keep them down basically. They really do suppress them, because if they get a university education, they can make something for themselves. That they don't rely on them. And these men, if they rely on crime, they've kind of peaked already. So the more violent and brutally they behave, the more accepted they are by their own culture of violence. But it doesn't evolve any further. They're just like kids. They do stupid things like machete women and stuff. It just seems, it's not something they can be proud about. And they've spent a life in denial. So for them women, more of this stuff will happen because they are being more progressive than the men. The men need to say, right, well, we understand how crime works. Now we need to develop something different, because really they just end up as kind of drug mules and things. They're not as high as they think they are up the chain, and they can only achieve a certain level. Even crime evolves. The problem isn't if people taking drugs or something like that. The issue is, or maintain some sort of power base. It's invested into society and growing beyond that. But if people do drink and all these other things, they've got nothing else going on. There's not the strong male types to educate the men. I don't care what somebody does with their own life, particularly if it isn't harmful to mine. And then I say also, people don't do themselves favours. So I saw something today and it was talking about transgender. I have no problem with people being transgender. They're trans people, that's fine. But then there's all these other things like, well, they need to be able to use the same toilets as everyone, and all these other things. Well, they could do if they belong to but they consider themselves a particular sex, but they can't walk into another person's toilet because they want to be accepted as being a part of that gender group. So at some levels they have a disability socially. I mean, it could be that they have like neutral toilets, so that disabled toilets are turned neutral in some way. So if for any reason or indifference you need to use them, there they are. So if you've got a disability, mental health, whatever, it could be, you could have an issue around being around people, but they're safe and secure places. If I walked into a female's toilet, what might happen is I say, well, I consider myself a female. I go to a toilet in there, a woman runs out and says there's a bloke, a pervert in the toilet next to me. I go out and I get smacked in the face and I get attacked because I'm more at risk to crime. So it's about keeping yourself safe as well. And it's the same if a girl walked into a male's toilet. You know, a couple of guys have been drinking or whatever, they're not going to really understand why she's there, and they're going to have all sorts of funny ideas. They might think, oh look, it's one of them girls who are in here. You know, and it just becomes quite a dangerous place because you're vulnerable there. So turning a disabled toilet into a kind of neutral zone for people that it might be mums, children, mums with kids. I mean, that sometimes happens. The mums probably bring them into the toilets. I had a weird experience in the past where I sat on this bog. It had a hole through the cubicle wall, and there was no one else in there. And then a woman came in with her boy, and I could see through the hole, and I could see she just said, right, take your trousers down, have a wee. I thought, oh, God, I don't want to see all this. So I ended up putting tissue in there, and then I was a bit freaked out because I didn't want to scare the woman. And also, if I come out of that toilet, I went to wash my hands, or I had to walk past that cubicle, she might freak out. Maybe she thought no one else was there, and she might think, oh, this, because it wasn't exactly the most nicest of place. And then plus there's the urinals next to it, and also how does somebody, if they're dressed up as in a skirt and stuff, use urinals? It's going to be a bit of a mess, really. I mean, you can use the normal box, but it's just a bit confusing. But anyways, for me, I had to, like I say, I blocked the hole up, stayed in the toilet quiet. When she'd left and gone, then I come out and washed my hands. I was more freaked out of her sensitivity and her reaction to that, because it's just dangerous. Legally, anything could be thrown at me. You know, if I scared the boy and he started crying, then who knows? So what's my tips on MGTOW? Basically, just explore different cultures, look for the advantages you're not getting in your own, and that goes for any just carefully doing it, driving back in here, and that goes for any gender. So yes, this is Pixie signing off, and I'm just getting all night. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.